All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network. And I am here. I am excited to talk about last night's Denver Nuggets win. A big win. I don't think it's like that massive, but it was still a fun, interesting game. And we had some fun, interesting stats to talk about at the end of it, with Nikola Jokic returning, Russell Westbrook playing well, both of them achieving triple doubles. I mean, who does that? Who does that? They are the second duo in NBA history to achieve multiple triple doubles at the same time. The other being Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, which that's kind of wild. That's an interesting one. Now, both of those are definitely like the 16, 10, and 10 kind of triple doubles, while Jokic and Westbrook just did 30-point triple-double and 20-point, like 25, wasn't it? Like, holy cow. Those guys are killing it and having a good time doing it. And now Denver didn't face the strongest competition yesterday. That's okay. We get to talk about it all. Real quick, this podcast is brought to you by the good folks over at BetOnline, your number one source for everything online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline provides you with the ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, and more. BetOnline is the number one sports betting source for the new year. BetOnline has you covered on every play, every game, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. Let's get into it. Let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about Nikola Jokic returning. Then we'll talk about Russell Westbrook returning. In the second segment, we will talk about Murray exiting early, as well as some good reps for the young guys. I thought that there were some good things that came from that, of course. And we'll get into all of it. It should be fun. Always appreciate the love and support on the show. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Snow Wolf's in the comments says, I was there. It was awesome. And Sudi Pego says, hi, Ryan Blackburn. How you doing? I'm doing good. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for popping in. It's always fun to hang out with the folks and to be able to talk Nuggets basketball. And like I said, I would be going live on this one. And I didn't know how enjoyable that was going to be until kind of the midway through the fourth quarter, where Jokic and Westbrook were both back in the game. The Nuggets were starting to have a little bit more fun because, if you guys remember, this was like a 5-point game at the 9-minute mark, the 10-minute mark of the fourth quarter. Not great. Denver ultimately got some separation late, but throughout this one, Denver, they kind of waxed and waned in terms of effort, focus, intensity. And that's not a surprise given the team that they were facing, the Brooklyn Nets, who were without D'Angelo Russell, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, Bojan Bogdanovic, DeAnthony Melton, who they traded for Dennis Schroeder, is out for the season, and a whole bunch of other guys for sure. They were not without a whole, they just did not have a lot of playmaking on that roster. And Ben Simmons was really one of the only playmakers, but he only played about 20 minutes for some reason, 22 minutes. It's very odd. But either way, Denver did a pretty good job, I think, after the first quarter. Michael Malone was pretty happy with the effort after the first quarter. Fourth quarter, the way it started, it was pretty bad. But when Jokic comes back in and then dominates, and Westbrook comes back in and plays the way that he played, it's going to be easier. Denver lost the first quarter by 4, 36-32, but then they won each of the next 3 quarters by 10, 9, and 4. So it looks a lot better when you phrase it that way. And I'm not surprised that Denver took a little bit of time to get into this game, because there was Jokic getting back. You're facing a bad opponent. It's a great time for everybody to relax and to chill and not have to try too hard. Oh, wait. Ben Simmons is playing like Magic Johnson. Keon Johnson is shooting threes and doing well. Kind of wild. So pretty interesting to see. But Jokic and Westbrook specifically, we're going to talk about them now. Jokic gets back last night, immediately looks good. There were a couple plays here or there. They're like, oh, wow, he missed that bunny. But it just doesn't matter when you do what you're doing on a consistent basis. 37 minutes last night for Nikola Jokic, 35 points, 12 rebounds, 15 assists, just assisting up a storm. I went back and looked at some of the assists. He's got a lot to Russ. He's got a lot to Porter specifically. Both of those guys, I think at least 6 of Porter's 7 baskets were Jokic assisted buckets. And I'm pretty sure that Russ had at least 4 of his buckets assisted by Jokic too. So the way that the team is finding that chemistry with those two guys in particular, I think is really interesting. We already know what the Jokic-Murray chemistry, what that two-man game can do. Now we're seeing Jokic and Russ really start to get into it and really starting to get into that flow. But more on that in just a bit. Jokic has been tremendous. And every game, it seems like he's doing something crazy. He went out at the end of the first quarter, or pretty close to it, like 2 minutes left, immediately went back to the locker room. After the game, he told us he felt like he was going to die. I think dramatically, sarcastically, but I mean, he probably was feeling sick and not really able to breathe that well because of his illness. He said he got a whole bunch of fluids. He got a whole bunch of liquids, probably some packs of saline that they basically injected into him. And it just wouldn't surprise me that, like, just the way that he looked at the podium last night, he was feeling it. So hopefully he can continue to recover over the course of these next couple of days. I'm sure a flight today to Dallas is probably not going to be that fun. But either way, like he just continues to show how dominant he is. Every single time he gets back into the game, he plays well. I think he had like 20 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists or something like that at half. And then he just racked up the assists in the second half, racked up some rebounds in the second half, and just looked and played the part of this team that I'm facing is not good enough for me to like he could have scored 70. The way that things were going, if he really wanted to, he could have gotten downhill, scored 70 points, decided not to do that, got everybody else involved. And the way that Denver's offense around him was functioning, especially with Westbrook the way that he was, Jokic didn't need to score in the 50s or the 60s in order to get this game done. So it was a good job from him, a good win from the Nuggets. Jokic in his minutes was a plus 33 in 37 minutes. That's a crazy number. Plus 33 in the minutes that Joker played, minus 14 in the minutes that DeAndre Jordan played. I don't think that he played a very good game, but I don't necessarily think the Nuggets played a good game around DeAndre Jordan, I'll say. Murray especially had some struggles, and Julian Strawther was good when Jokic was on the floor, not as good when Jokic was off. So things like that they could tighten up a little bit, but overall still very good to see how they are handling things. And then there's Russ, who gets another triple-double with Denver. I think this is his third with the Nuggets. He had his 200th triple-double by himself when Jokic didn't have one. And then when Jokic is back, he's had his 201st and 202nd triple-doubles at the same time that Jokic has had a triple-double himself. It's been very impressive to see. Excuse me. He's just been awesome. It's been awesome to watch Russell Westbrook, and it's just not something that I expected coming into the season. I did not think I would be enjoying myself watching Russell Westbrook. The impression that I had got from other people, talking to other media members, their experiences watching Russ over the course of the last few years. Now, I was talking to LA people, and there's a reason why I think those people didn't have a good time. It's because the LA stints for Russ were not as good as they could have been. And I think if I had gone back and talked to some Washington people or some Houston people or some OKC people, they probably have told me different. But the way that he has handled himself and the way that he has stepped up in this regular season for Jamal Murray specifically, but in different situations where he's playing next to Jamal Murray, it's just been great. 25 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, 1 steal and a block. Russ was plus 21 in 36 minutes, and a lot of those he didn't overlap with Jokic. There were some times where he did, but a lot of those he didn't necessarily overlap. I'm thinking of that beginning fourth quarter stretch where he wasn't as good. and the team wasn't as good. But then Jokic comes back in and they restore order together. It just is so clear to me that the duo between those two guys is just getting better and showing how they can both impact the game at the same time because they're both savants. They both find ways to make people better, and they have like kind of maximized each other in that regard. One thing I really have valued about Russell Westbrook is that he has helped Jokic play his best basketball of his career on the offensive end, especially. Defensive end, you get through the regular season. It's an effort thing. You figure it out. But on the offensive end, Jokic is at his best, his very best. He's shooting the ball well. He's playing consistently. He is playing aggressively on almost every basis and maximizing the possessions that he has. They're playing through him. They trust him. And Russ trusts him tremendously. And I know that Russ trusts other people too, but I can get this sense of this reverence that Russ does have for Jokic in the post-game pressers, in just the way that they interact on the court, the way that he defers to Jokic, tries to set him up as much as humanly possible. I don't know if this is the same Russ that played with Kevin Durant, that played with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, that played with James Harden in Houston specifically, that played with Kawhi Leonard in LA, that played with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in LA as well. It really does feel like the way that Denver has been able to use Russ on the ball, putting him into positions where he can succeed, but also feel like he's involved, has really helped him out a ton. Because so many of those other guys, whether it's Harden, whether it's LeBron, whether it's KD, if not as much KD, but that was a while back, they need the ball in their hands to flourish. They need the ball in their hands to be operating well. Jokic, I don't know if you guys saw this stat. I saw something come across the timeline on Twitter yesterday that B-Ball Index put out. They have different metrics that they measure. One of them was off-ball shooting, off-ball scoring. Jokic is number 1, and Michael Porter's number 5 in that. And Jokic apparently number 1 by far. And I can see how valuable that is because of what Jokic has done. He moves off the ball really well, but in order to get the ball when you're off the ball, you need a smart passer. And so it's not surprising to me that Michael Porter's on that list because he gets to receive the ball from Nikola Jokic. But Jokic being on that list and being so good at it, it means that the rest of the team has to find him. The rest of the team has to see him and spot him in these different ways. And Westbrook just makes these incredible passes. He made one full court on the bounce left-handed to Julian Strawther, I think, in the third quarter. That was a tremendous pass. But most of the passes that I look at with Westbrook are when he's finding Jokic in these tight windows, over the top of the defense, zipping the ball into where Jokic can get it, and just taking chances that other guys aren't really willing to take. Westbrook is tremendous at doing that. And it's been a lot of fun to cover him. Post-game pressers, he's been really good when he's come to the podium, especially. He's been gracious. He has been somebody that I think understands what this experience is all about and knows that he's here to help Denver win a championship. Like, they're not here to help him win a championship. He's here to help Denver. And he has been so willing to buy into that. And on the podium yesterday, he said, I'd run through a brick wall for all these guys. He was talking, I asked him a question about how you stay up against a team like Brooklyn when they have so many guys out. And he's like, you don't disrespect the game. You maintain championship habits. You try to build for something greater. I just love that. I think that's perfect. I think the mentality that he has brought has helped make Denver a better regular season team. They had to go through a growth period with him. They had to figure some stuff out. But ultimately, it's just so important for a veteran to be able to have that as their voice. And he's just stepped up in such a big way for the Nuggets. Without KCP there, it hasn't been like he's not the KCP replacement, but I think he is as the veteran. And just the way that he has approached everything, the way that people trust him, It makes so much sense. So really glad that he's been there, and I'm pretty happy with it. Who is saying Giannis is better than Jokic in this comment section? Who the hell are you? What are you doing? How can you possibly even like what do we watch this year? I don't understand. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to discuss the rest of the team. We're going to talk about Jamal Murray's exit and also the young guys just really stepping up in this moment and having a good time. We'll talk about that soon here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Oh, God. We're back. Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you can tell, 3 games and 4 nights at Ball Arena, and just all the podcasts that I've done on both here and on Locked On, and just it's starting to get to me. So I'm doing my best, folks. Thank you for bearing with me. Giannis is better than Jokic. Jesus, holy cow. All right. Let's talk now about Jamal Murray. He looked awkward, and he was playing a weird game in the first half. And I also, just looking at the rotation chart that I put out yesterday, if you don't know, I put out these rotation charts for the Nuggets on Twitter when I'm doing socials, when I'm putting them in my recaps. And the rotation chart for Murray was very weird. He played a 5-minute stretch in the first quarter, which is very short. It's shorter than what he usually does. He came back in a little bit earlier in the first quarter and then played an 8-minute stretch all the way to the 8-minute mark of the second quarter. And then he had a 6-minute break, which is longer than he usually has. And he came back in at the 2-minute mark of the second quarter, played the final 2 minutes, didn't look super comfortable. He did hit a pull-up 3 in transition, which was nice. But the rest of his game, like, he had 3 assists and 3 turnovers. He had 7 points. Nothing to write home about. His defense was horrible. A lot to make of there. So I do think that he was clearly bothered by something. And then he comes out, and like after halftime, and the rest of the team comes back out, and Murray isn't out there. And then we get the notification that he's questionable to return with knee soreness. And that just doesn't surprise me. If you've listened to me at all on this podcast, you know that, like, look, there's some injury stuff that he has to deal with, that he's had to navigate, that he's had to figure out. And it's just not a surprise that 3rd game in 4 nights, Denver's played multiple back-to-backs, and he's been on multiple back-to-backs in these last few games. He is definitely somebody that he should be getting more rest than what he's gotten. I just tend to think that, especially with Jalen Pickett playing the way that he is, Denver can survive a Murray absence if they need to. Let me respond to Chris here. I think Jamal needs an extended break, he says. I don't think he needs extended break. I think he needs management. I think he needs, like, you know how Embiid has his knee managed, how Kawhi has his injuries managed. I think that Murray, maybe not to that degree for those guys, but there needs to be a built-in schedule to make sure that he is not playing a certain number of games over a short period of time, and that he's getting a break when he needs it. And because he's not going to say that he needs a break until it's bad, until he's like, "Ow, I'm in a lot of pain." Denver should probably be managing this a little bit more than they have. I'm not going to micromanage the training staff because they obviously know more than I do. But I do think that just watching him last night, he looked like he was gutting it out when he didn't have to. They're facing Brooklyn. Brooklyn's missing 5 starters or however many they are. Like, it definitely felt like they were like he was trying to prove something last night, but just trying to get through it when he didn't have to. I know that he isn't playing his best basketball of all time, but the team is going to be better if Jamal is at his peak. And anything that puts him further away from that, I think all Nuggets fans can agree that they would rather see Jamal play healthy than play at all. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like going forward. But it wouldn't surprise me if he popped up on the injury report this afternoon for tomorrow's game against Dallas. Wouldn't surprise me if he missed that one and then played on Tuesday. That would be my prediction for what happens. I think that honestly, they should rest him for that Dallas game and then maybe play him on the next one. So we'll see what happens with it. We'll see what it ultimately looks like. And or maybe he plays on Sunday. Maybe it looks good. But the way that Russ is playing right now, you have flexibility. You have the opportunity. You have the opportunity to make it all right. T says the guy makes $50 million a year. You said he needs management. Bring him off the bench. Play him 15 or 20 minutes a night. That is not how the NBA works. If you say that, then I just know that you don't know how the NBA works. He's going to be a starter. The money talks. You just said it. He makes $50 million a year. He's gonna start. That's how it works. So look. Nuggets fans should be trying to get Jamal to be they should be wanting him to be in the best possible place he can be. And the best way that he can be there is to manage from a game to game basis. How are you feeling? If you're feeling less than 100, then let's not play you. Denver, I think, is fully recovered from a standings perspective. They're now 22-15. Let me just go do the look-see over here. 22-15. Houston above them is 25-12 at the second spot. Memphis is 24-14. They are in the third spot. Dallas is 22-16. Yes, Denver needs to worry about some of the teams that are below them. They can't lose a bunch of ground. But I think they're in a place now that they've separated a little bit from Sacramento, who's 19-19. Although Sacramento's won 6 in a row. Good Lord. Golden State's 19-19. San Antonio's 18-19. Phoenix is 17-19. Like those teams, I don't think Denver's in that much danger. So they have the flexibility and time to be able to let Jamal get right. And I hope that they continue to use that, especially with Russ and Jalen Pickett playing the way that they're playing. So we'll see what happens. But either way, that's another topic for another podcast. In this game, Christian Braun, I thought, played pretty well. He didn't take a ton of shots in the first. Actually, he didn't take really any shots in the first half, but then he got him up in the second half. 11 points, 7 rebounds, 1 steal, 4 of 7 from the field. Made his only 3, 2 of 2 from the line, plus 18. Pretty good for a supporting role kind of night. Michael Porter Jr., I guess I should mention him. I thought he played well. I was talking to somebody who didn't think that he played like a very good game. I just don't think that Porter shot the ball well. 7 of 16 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. That means he was 5 of 7 from 2. 1 of 2 from the line. He does need to make his free throws. Like that is inexcusable at this point. Like his free throw percentage is closer to 60 than it is to 80 at this point, that's a problem. But he had 17 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 2 blocks. And the 2 steals, 2 blocks to me matters. I thought his help defense was pretty good. I thought he was pretty smart. And just the way that he played, I thought he played pretty well. But the guys that I really want to talk about again, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett. DeAndre Jordan didn't have a good game. We can breeze right by that. He's been good for Denver for a while. He gets a pass, especially in this matchup against Brooklyn, where everybody's very fast. Everybody's very athletic. DJ's going to match up a little bit better with some of the sturdier ground-bound bigs. But let's start with Peyton Watson, who was on 5x5 watch early on in this game. He had 2 steals and 2 blocks before halftime. Finished with 2 steals and 2 blocks, which is too bad, but had 10 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists at the first half as well. 2 steals, 2 blocks, was very good all around. 5 turnovers is too many, and there were some plays where he got a little bit mixed up in some of his defensive coverages. He was a little bit slow on some closeouts, on some of the final rotations of some plays. And look, some of that's going to be a focus thing when it comes to playing the Brooklyn Nets. But he has to be locked in. He has to be as dialed as possible in those moments when he's facing better teams. But the talent is clearly there and it's clearly showing through. He's clearly showing that there's more to give from a scoring perspective, from a creation perspective. Like when he has more opportunities as a playmaker, he can make the most of it. Now, again, 5 turnovers is a lot. Denver has to make sure to coach that out of him a little bit. But you have to take chances in order to grow. And that's not a surprise. Like Peyton should be racking up higher numbers of turnovers against Brooklyn as long as he's doing some of the other stuff. So glad to see him growing a little bit. We'll see if it continues, but I really like seeing Denver trust him. He played 34 minutes in this game as kind of like a reverse starter. Think about especially because Jamal went out, but also they just want defense. Peyton played the final 18 minutes of the first half. He missed the first 6 minutes because he wasn't a starter, but he played the final 18. And then he played the final 16 minutes of the second half. He came in at about the 4-minute mark of the third quarter, 4 or 5-minute mark, somewhere around there, and basically played all the way through at that point. So the what he's playing, what he's doing, like the team is trusting him and putting him in a position to succeed. Sometimes they're trusting Julian Strawther, and they trusted him a fair amount. Still played Julian 31 minutes as well, but Julian's role is clearly scorer, shooter, versatile offensive player. He had 12 points, 1 rebound, 0 assists, steals, or blocks. Like his role is very focused on, I'm going to put the ball in the hole. Peyton Watson's kind of complementary to that, where Peyton can do it a little bit, but mostly it's he's going to do everything else. And you want somebody like that. Jokic, when he was asked about Peyton Watson in the postgame presser, said, what can he continue to do to, like, if you wanted to see him continue to grow, like, what do you want to take him with you? And you said versatility. And I love that because I'm looking at both of those guys, Strawther and Watson. Strawther is a little bit smaller, but they're both like in that 6'7" to 6'8" range. I like seeing Strawther score and then Watson do the detail stuff. Watson do the scoring, like a little bit of like running in transition, obviously, a little bit of passing, a little bit of rebounding, a little bit of steals and blocks. Like it's very clear to me that those guys are at their best when Julian is focused on scoring and helping the team out in that regard, and Peyton is focused on filling in the gaps. Now, that's kind of tough because I'm sure that Peyton would want to be more scorer as well, because that might help him grow. It might help him make even more money in his career. But there's a clear role and a clear opportunity for both of those guys on this Nuggets team if they can perfect those skills for this season. If Julian can stay pretty consistent as a scorer, if Peyton can stay consistent as a defender, especially. Like he won DPOG yesterday for Denver and continues to find ways to impact the game. I'm thinking pretty valuable stuff from them. But then Jalen Pickett, I think, is another guy to talk about. Only 10 minutes yesterday, didn't do anything crazy, 5 points, but he was 2 of 4. He got to the free throw line once, missed his only 3, but he still navigated reasonably well. There was one possession that I remember where he dribbled the air out of the ball. And on those situations, you're like, okay, pass the ball, or do something with it. And rather than pass the ball, he actually ended up doing something with it. He got it kind of towards the left baseline area, but then squeaked his way in under the rim and hit a shot, just banked it up off the glass for a layup. And being able to navigate like that, kind of take advantage of people underestimating you a little bit, that's really important for him. He has to stay aggressive in those moments. He can't just always defer. He has to be willing to take some shots. And he is talented enough as a scorer that he can do it. A lot of it was just up here, I think. So I think what we're seeing from Jalen is that he can be helpful in these moments. And just as a passer, as a defensive player, he's a better defensive player than I thought he was going to be. He's in the right spot more often than not. And it just feels like there's plenty of opportunity for him to kind of step up in this moment if Jamal's feeling a little bit iffy with his knee. So I hope that they continue to play him. I honestly hope that they rest Jamal on Sunday and that they continue to find Jalen Pickett some opportunities with that second unit. Or what they do is they stagger Russ and they say, okay, Russ, you're going to play the first 6-7 minutes of the quarter. Jalen's going to come back in for the final 5 minutes of the first and third quarters. And then Russ is going to play in the second and fourth quarter. And if he needs a break in like those spots, then Jalen can come back in briefly. Or they could go with a no point guard look with Julian, Christian, Peyton, Michael Porter, Jokic, something like that. But they have the flexibility to be able to do it, and they should be trying to open up the rotation as much as possible. They're playing so many games in January. You do not want to go to a 7-8 man rotation if you can help it. Already, DeAndre Jordan plays like 10 minutes if Jokic is going to play 38. So Denver's got to open it up as much as possible. Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther got to do that. And fortunately, one thing that we can talk about is that maybe Aaron Gordon's coming back soon. That could give Denver a little bit of flexibility as well. Aaron Gordon was doubtful on the injury report for this last game. He didn't play. I asked Michael Malone about it. He said he's making progress, but he's not quite ready. We'll see if he's ready by Sunday. I don't think that they should be rushing him by any stretch of the word. But if Jamal's got some injury stuff and Denver needs a little bit more size and defense and versatility in the front court, Aaron would be great. Aaron would be very great. So we'll see what it ultimately looks like with that, whether they can get him back soon. But I do think that like if Denver could get reasonably healthy over the course of these next couple weeks, I have a feeling that they can get on a little bit of a roll. The way that Russ is playing, the way that that Joker's playing, the way that the young guys are continuing to develop and find some rhythm, Mike's playing the best basketball of his career. I think that there's some opportunities here. Like Denver's only 22-15 right now. They've got some tough matchups going forward here. But like Dallas, who they're facing on Sunday and Tuesday, I don't think they're going to have either Luka or Kyrie. And so if you're the Nuggets, you obviously have to take advantage of that. You can't let that pass you by. And if they do take advantage of that, that really gives them some flexibility in the standings and in the Western Conference playoff picture. So there are some opportunities here. Denver's in a pretty good spot. I know that it hasn't felt like it, but they are trending in the right direction. And I want to make sure to give them credit where the credit is due. I've often been the one to be like, hey, sound the alarm. Things are not very good right now. Things are not very good right now. They are very good right now. They're trending. They're trending in a good place. And it's on them to keep playing the right way, to keep making sure that everybody's going in the right direction. But I have liked what I've seen. And I do think that there's some potential here for Denver to, whether it's rattle off a win streak or just playing good basketball. Like they won 8 of their last 11 at one point before losing, I think, that San Antonio game. I think that they're in a pretty good spot. And it wouldn't surprise me if they went on a similar run like that, or maybe even better. So we will see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing what they ultimately do. Chris says, Ryan, am I a bad fan for not trusting this team yet? Absolutely not. I mean, they have to prove it, of course. They have to. I don't necessarily think it's bad to be cautious, especially, I mean, they do still have a lot of, not problems, but questions. Jamal's still not playing at the best level that he needs to be. The defense is still not at the level that it needs to be, although I do think it's making progress. And there's still like a lot of questions about, hey, you're trusting young guys. You're trusting a whole bunch of guys to fill in these spots and play some very important roles. I understand it. Like I totally get it. Like it's not a bad fan thing at all. I think if it were up to me running the organization, and I'm not, though that would be cool. If it were up to me, I would be trying to add 1 or 2 more rotation pieces. I think somebody kind of in that 4-5 region that gives them a little bit more spacing, that gives them a little bit more shooting, but also some rim protection, that would be great. And then potentially in like the backcourt, somebody who's a little bit more of a point of attack defender, somebody who can stay in front of guys a little bit better. Give guys like Jamal, Christian Brown, Russell Westbrook, anybody in the backcourt. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried to target that spot as well. So Denver can do this. They can, and honestly, like if they also wanted to get a defensive wing like a Justin Holiday, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either. So there's plenty of things that they can do. But I think that they're still trending. They are still trending in the right direction. They're not there yet, but they're in a pretty good spot. Ari says, hey, Ryan, note Chris Boucher, who Begley reported Denver is fans of, is on an expiring contract. Chris Boucher would be good for this team. He wouldn't be great for this team. He's also like, you need to sell Toronto on getting Zeke Najee's contract. Good luck with that. If you can do it, then you should be in the NBA. They are not going to want to take back Zeke Najee's contract. That's like full stop. And Denver cannot take back more money than they send out. So they would have to send something else in addition to Zeke Najee's contract. And they have to send out draft compensation, which they don't have. So pretty tough spot to be in. J-Bun says, I recognize your voice at the post-game press conference asking Malone a question. I'm in each one of those, man. Every single home game, I am there. I'm sitting front row most of the time, and I really do try to stay as present as possible. Malone and I have a pretty good relationship. I think I have a pretty good relationship with most of the players too. And like that's why you listen to the show, hopefully, is that like one, it's entertaining, but two, I'm there. I'm actually doing the work and trying to have these discussions and do like there's a lot of other folks in the media room that are also doing great work. And I heard somebody talking last night that it is such a competitive space in the Denver market right now because so many people are doing great stuff. I'm just trying to be a part of that too. So if you enjoy, I really appreciate it. But yeah, I think that's probably a good place to end. That is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Happy weekend, everybody. It's Saturday morning when I'm recording this one. We have a whole bunch of people in here, so thank you for tuning in live. Going to be interesting. Going to be fun, and I really appreciate everybody for stopping by. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Always appreciate the love and support. I will talk to you guys next week.